The starship descended through the cloudy skies of the alien world, its silver hull reflecting the pale light of two suns. Daniel sat quietly in his seat, staring out the window at the sprawling city below. Towers of glass and stone reached high, into the sky, glowing with faint blue lines of energy. This was not Earth, not anything close. This was the capital of the Zalari Empire, one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. He had been chosen as one of Earth's first envoys. It was not because he was the strongest soldier or the smartest scientist. Instead, it was because he had something most did not: patience and an ear for languages. Even as a boy, Daniel had loved learning words from different cultures on Earth. Now, he would try to use that gift in a place where one wrong word could start a war. The ship landed on a smooth platform, and the ramp lowered with a hiss. The air was warm and smelled faintly of flowers, though there was also a sharp metallic taste that clung to the back of his tongue. Daniel adjusted his formal jacket, the symbol of Earth stitched on the chest, and walked down with slow steps. Waiting. For him were guards in silver armor and tall spears that shimmered with light. Behind them, courtiers in flowing robes whispered among themselves, their eyes fixed on the lone human. At the center of the group stood the princess. She was striking, tall, graceful, with pale lavender skin that glowed faintly under the suns. Her eyes were bright gold, sharp and curious, framed by silver hair braided with small jewels. Her presence commanded attention. She wore a gown woven from silk-like threads that shifted colors when she moved. When Daniel reached the bottom of the ramp, he bowed slightly as he had practiced. The courtiers muttered, unsure whether his gesture was proper. The princess tilted her head and smiled, though there was a glimmer of amusement in her eyes. "So, this is the human," she said, her voice smooth and melodic. "Your people send you here as an envoy, yet your tongue sounds heavy. Your accent is clumsy. Are all humans like this?" A ripple of laughter spread through the courtiers. Some covered their mouths, while others laughed openly. Daniel stood still, his face calm, though he felt the weight of their mocking eyes. "I thank you for receiving me," Daniel replied in Galari, the common tongue of the Empire. He spoke carefully, but he knew his accent betrayed him. The princess chuckled softly. "Your words stumble, envoy. Perhaps you should let others speak for you. Our language is not made for human mouths." Daniel did not answer right away. He simply nodded as if her words had not pierced him, though inside he felt a quiet determination building. He had studied not only the common language, but the old tongue of the Zalari, the one rarely spoken outside of rituals. He had learned it in secret, long nights spent listening to recordings and repeating words until his throat was sore. As the group moved toward the palace gates, the princess walked ahead, her gown trailing behind like a river of light. Courtiers followed, whispering jokes about the human's strange accent. Daniel walked behind them, listening to every word but showing no sign of anger. The palace itself was a marvel. Towers of crystal rose into the skies, connected by bridges of glowing stone. Waterfalls poured from hidden channels, filling the air with mist. Murals carved into the walls told the history of the Zalari Empire, its rise, its victories, its wisdom. Daniel took it all in, silently storing the details in his mind. Inside the grand hall, a long table of polished black stone stretched before him. Banners hung from the ceiling, each marked with the sigil of the royal house. The princess sat at the head of the table, her courtiers to her left and right. Daniel was guided to a seat opposite her. "We shall test the human's courage," one noble whispered, not quietly enough. The princess smiled again, her eyes never leaving Daniel. "Tell us, envoy, do your people truly think they can stand among great empires? You can hardly speak without stumbling." The hall filled with soft laughter once more. Daniel set his hands calmly on the table. His heart beat faster, but his face showed no anger. He knew this moment mattered. "Your Highness," he began in the common tongue again. "Perhaps I stumble, perhaps my words sound strange to your ears, but words are more than sound. They are bridges, and bridges can be crossed." His answer quieted a few of the courtiers, though others smirked. The princess leaned forward, amused. "Bold words, human, yet your bridge is fragile." Daniel inhaled, slowly. Then, in a clear voice, he spoke, not in the common tongue, but in the ancient Zalari language. "Your bridge is strong, princess, if both sides are willing to walk across." The hall froze. The sound of the old tongue, spoken perfectly, echoed against the crystal walls. The courtiers gasped. Some stood from their seats in shock. The princess's golden eyes widened. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came. For the first time since Daniel arrived, there was no laughter. Only silence, heavy and sharp. The princess stared at him, frozen. In her world, few even among nobles could speak the old tongue so clearly. And yet this human, mocked moments ago, had spoken it with respect and care. Daniel held her gaze calmly. "I came to build trust, not to be mocked, not to mock you in return. I came to listen, and to speak, if you will allow me." The princess sat back slowly, her expression unreadable. The courtiers exchanged uneasy looks. The air in the hall had changed. What had begun as a game of mockery now felt like the first step into something far greater. The silence in the hall stretched longer than anyone expected. The courtiers who had laughed moments ago now shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some glanced at the princess, others kept their eyes fixed on Daniel as if trying to understand. How a human could speak words that even many nobles struggled to pronounce. The princess did not speak right away. Her golden eyes, sharp as blades, stayed locked on Daniel. She had meant to embarrass him, to show the court that humans were clumsy and unfit for diplomacy. Instead, he had turned the hall into a stage of shock. Finally, she leaned back in her chair, her voice calm but tinged with curiosity. "Tell me, envoy, where did you learn our sacred tongue? It is forbidden outside the royal houses. Even our allies do not know it." Daniel kept his tone respectful. "On Earth, we study what others ignore. Your old tongue is not forbidden in the archives. We listened. We learned. I thought if I was to walk among your people, I should know more than simple greetings. I should know your heart, not just your words." His words rippled through the hall. Courtiers whispered, their voices a mix of disbelief and unease. The princess raised a hand and silence fell again. "You claim to know our heart?" Her tone was sharp, but her eyes gleamed with something else. Interest, perhaps even a spark of respect. "Then prove it, human. Words are only sounds. Meaning comes from the soul." Daniel bowed his head slightly. "I will try, Your Highness." She rose gracefully from her seat, her gown shifting colors like liquid silver. With a flick of her hand, she ordered the court to follow. The group moved through arched hallways into a smaller chamber lit by soft blue crystals. Here, murals covered every wall, telling stories of the Zalari's past. Battles, victories, betrayals, and oaths were painted with exquisite detail. The princess stood before one mural depicting a Zalari king kneeling before a fallen soldier. "This," she said, "is one of our oldest tales. A ruler humbled himself before a common soldier who gave his life for the empire. Do you know its meaning?" Daniel studied the painting. The Zalari language whispered in his mind. The lessons he had memorized coming back to him. He spoke slowly, choosing his words with care. "It means even the highest must honor the lowest. It means sacrifice is greater than crown. Your people believe respect must be earned, not simply given." A murmur spread among the courtiers. Many had not expected him to know the deeper meaning. one often hidden from outsiders. The princess tilted her head, her lips curving in the faintest smile. Not bad, human, but one story is not enough. She moved to another mural, this one showing a great river splitting into two paths. Tell me this. Why do we paint our empire as a river that divides? Daniel's eyes narrowed. He had read of this tale. Because your people once faced two futures, one of conquest, one of peace. You chose both. You fought when forced. But you also built bridges. The river divides, but both streams feed the same sea, the courtiers gasped. One old noble muttered, "How could he know that? Even many of us do not recall the full teaching." The princess's smile faded, replaced by something deeper. She walked closer to Daniel, her golden eyes searching his face. You have studied well, human, but study alone cannot give you our soul. Do you believe you truly understand us? Daniel met her gaze. I do not claim to understand everything. I only claim to listen. If I am wrong, I hope you will teach me. But if I am right, then perhaps we can learn from each other. For the first time, the princess said nothing. Her courtiers shifted, sensing her hesitation. To break the silence, another noble stepped forward, sneering. He speaks like a student reciting lines. Let him show action, not words. Challenge him, princess. Show us he is no more than a mimic. The princess considered this, then nodded slowly. Very well. If the human wishes to stand among us, he must pass our test. Tomorrow at dawn he will face the ritual of tongues. The hall erupted in whispers. Daniel remained calm, though his pulse quickened. He had read of the ritual but never thought he would face it. It was not a trial of combat, but of speech, memory, and wisdom. Few outsiders had ever attempted it. Fewer had survived without disgrace. I accept, Daniel said quietly. The princess studied him for a moment longer, then turned away. Let us see if your bridge of words can hold your weight, human. That night, Daniel was given chambers within the palace. The walls shimmered with shifting colors, and the bed was soft as clouds, but he could not rest easily. He sat at a desk reviewing his notes, recalling every phrase, every proverb, every song he had studied. The ritual of tongues was not just about speaking, it was about meaning, about knowing when to answer with silence and when to answer with truth. As the hours passed, he thought of Earth. He thought of the hopes placed upon him. Failure would mean shame, not only for himself but for humanity's place in the galaxy. In another part of the palace, the princess sat with her advisors. Some urged her to dismiss the human. Others warned that if he succeeded, it might raise humanity's standing too high. The princess listened quietly, her eyes thoughtful. Finally, she spoke. He is different. He does not bow too deeply, nor does he boast. He listens. That is rare, even among us. I will see how far he can go. When dawn came, the palace bells rang. Daniel walked into the ritual chamber, his heart steady. The princess stood at the center, her gown now marked with symbols of her house. Around her, nobles gathered, watching. With sharp eyes, she raised her hand. Envoy Daniel of Earth, today you face the ritual of tongues. If you fail, you will leave this palace in shame. If you succeed, we shall see what place humans deserve. Daniel bowed slightly, his eyes meeting hers. I am ready, Your Highness. The princess's lips curved into a faint smile. Then let us begin. The first challenge had started, and the fate of human respect in the Zalari Empire balanced on every word he would speak. The chamber of the ritual was vast and circular, its walls carved with symbols that glowed faintly with blue light. Every line of those carvings held the weight of centuries, each word a part of the Zalari's proud history. Nobles filled the high seats that circled the room, their robes flowing as they leaned forward to see the lone human who dared to step into their sacred trial. Daniel stood at the center, his hands calm at his sides, though his chest rose and fell with steady breaths. The air inside the chamber felt different, heavy, as if thousands of voices from the past pressed in on him. He reminded himself that fear was natural. Patience, not panic, would guide him through this. The princess entered with quiet grace, her golden eyes steady as she took her place on a raised platform. She looked down at him, not with mockery this time, but with a cold curiosity. She raised her hand, and the voices of the nobles hushed. "Human envoy," she said, her tone formal, "you face the ritual of tongues. 3 trials will test you, in speech, in wisdom, and in heart. Pass them, and you may remain among us with honor. Fail, and you leave as a fool." Daniel bowed slightly. "I understand." The first trial began. A silver-robed elder stepped forward carrying a scroll written in the ancient Zalari script. He unrolled it, revealing lines of poetry. "Speak these words," the elder commanded, "and do not falter." Daniel looked at the script. It was written in twisting, elegant letters, the kind that shifted their meaning depending on tone. He remembered his long nights of study repeating verses until his voice broke. Closing his eyes for a moment, he drew a breath, then began. His voice was steady, flowing through the complex words. Each syllable landed with care. The chamber fell silent as he recited lines that spoke of rivers and stars, of sacrifice and unity. When he finished, the elder's eyes widened slightly. There had been no stumble, no broken sound. The courtiers whispered nervously. Many had expected him to fail at the first step. The princess gave no sign of approval or disapproval. She only nodded. "You passed the first trial. Now the second." The second trial was not about speech, but understanding. A noblewoman stepped forward, her robe marked with golden threads. She spoke a proverb in the ancient tongue. "The branch bends, yet does not break. What is its meaning, human?" Daniel thought carefully. The Zalari loved metaphors. To answer wrongly would be to reveal ignorance. He raised his head. "It means strength is not always rigid. It means survival comes from bending with the storm, not fighting it. A tree that refuses to bend is the first to fall." The noblewoman's eyes narrowed, then she slowly nodded. "A correct answer." Another noble tested him with a riddle. 2 rivers meet, yet one is swallowed by the other. What remains? Daniel spoke without hesitation. "A greater river, carrying both. The lesson is unity. Strength in joining, not in dividing." Gasps rose from the crowd. These questions were meant to humiliate him, but he answered as though he had lived among the Zalari for years. The princess leaned forward, studying him with new intensity. "You are not like other envoys," she said softly, though all could hear. "But words can be learned. Wisdom can be copied. The third trial will show us your true heart." For the third trial, the princess herself descended from her platform. She stood before Daniel, her gown flowing like a river of silver. In her hands, she carried a small bowl of water, glowing faintly with light. She held it out to him. "This is the water of memory," she said. "Each who faces this trial must speak not from the mind, but from the soul. Tell us a truth that binds your people to ours. If your words are hollow, the water will fade. If your words are true, it will shine brighter." Daniel took the bowl carefully, feeling the warmth of the liquid inside. His reflection wavered on the surface, pale and uncertain. He lifted his eyes to meet hers. "My people are young compared to yours," he began. "We have no vast empire, no ancient cities in the stars. We have stumbled, fallen, fought each other, and risen again. But one thing guides us, always: connection. We survive because we remember the sacrifices of those before us. We survive because we learn, because we refuse to forget. And we come here not to conquer, but to share. Your people remember their rivers, their choices, their sacrifices. So, do we. That is what binds us. Memory and the will to carry it forward. As he spoke, the water in the bowl shimmered brighter, glowing like captured starlight. Gasps filled the chamber as the glow spread, casting silver light across the walls. Daniel lowered the bowl carefully and stepped back. The princess stared at him, her golden eyes wide. She reached out, touched the rim of the bowl, and pulled her hand back quickly as if it burned. "It shines," she whispered. "It has not shone like this for many years." The nobles erupted in voices, some in awe, others in anger. "Impossible," one cried. "A human cannot carry truth like this." Another shouted, "This is a trick!" The princess silenced them with a sharp gesture. She looked at Daniel, her expression unreadable. The ritual is complete. The human has passed. The chamber filled with a storm of voices. Some nobles bowed their heads in reluctant respect. Others glared, unwilling to accept what they had witnessed. But none could deny the truth. The human had succeeded in all three trials. The princess turned to the court. "Let it be known that envoy Daniel of Earth has spoken our tongue, our wisdom, and our truth. Humanity is no longer a shadow at the edge of the stars. They have a place here." Her words carried authority, and though some muttered in disapproval, none dared to challenge her openly. Daniel bowed his head. "Thank you, Your Highness. Not for honor, but for trust. That is what I seek." The princess studied him for a long moment, then spoke in a quieter tone, almost too soft for the court to hear. "You are different from what I expected, human. Perhaps even different from what you believe yourself to be." Her eyes lingered on him before she turned back to her throne. "The trial is over. Let the court be dismissed." As the nobles filed out, their voices buzzing with confusion and debate, Daniel stood alone in the chamber, the weight of what had just happened settling on his shoulders. He had earned respect, but he also knew respect was fragile. The Zalari Empire did not give easily, and somewhere among the whispers he sensed danger waiting to rise. For now, though, he had taken the first step, and the princess, once mocking him, now looked at him with something far different, an interest that might grow into something he had never imagined. The day after the ritual of tongues, soft dawn light spilled through the palace windows, painting silver patterns across polished floors. Daniel woke early, his mind replaying yesterday's triumph. He had passed the trials, but victory felt fragile, like a glass bridge over deep water. He dressed in the plain envoy jacket that now seemed too small for the weight of new expectations, and stepped into the hallway, hoping to breathe the cool morning air. A guard in shimmering armor greeted him with a short bow. "The princess requests your presence in the crystal garden," she said. Her voice held neither warmth nor ice. It was the careful middle tone of someone trained to stay neutral in palace games. Daniel followed the guard through twisting corridors. Many nobles passed them, some offering stiff nods, others turning away. A few murmured under their breath, still unwilling to accept that a human had succeeded where some of their own had stumbled. Daniel kept his eyes forward, reminding himself that patience was stronger than pride. The crystal garden lay at the heart of the palace. Towering columns of translucent stone curved overhead like frozen waves, catching the twin suns and scattering light into 1,000 gentle rainbows. Silver-leafed, vines climbed the columns, their blossoms releasing a faint, sweet scent. Streams of water ran in narrow channels between walkways, singing a quiet song as they flowed. The princess stood near a low fountain shaped like a star. Sunlight danced across the surface of the water, casting rippling patterns onto her lavender skin. Her gown today was simpler, a soft shade of blue that shifted to silver when she moved. She turned as Daniel approached, her golden eyes unreadable. "Good morning, envoy," she said. "Good morning, Your Highness," he replied with a small bow. She gestured toward the fountain's edge. "Sit. I wish to speak without the court." "Listening." Daniel sat beside her, careful to keep respectful space between them. Birds with glassy feathers fluttered overhead, their wings chiming like distant bells. For a moment, neither spoke. Then the princess broke the silence. "You surprised me yesterday," she admitted, her voice quiet. "Few outside the royal house can pass the ritual. Fewer still make the water of memory shine." Daniel felt heat rise to his cheeks. "I only hope to show respect, Your Highness. I did not mean to embarrass anyone." "Embarrass?" she repeated, a soft, almost amused sound. "Perhaps. But you also reminded us of something important, that we can still learn from others." She paused, eyes narrowing as though studying him. "Tell me, why did you truly come here? Not the formal reason, but your own." Daniel considered. Simple truth often walked farther than polished lies. "I came because I believe misunderstanding breeds fear. If humans and Zalari speak, trade stories, and share ideas, we may never need to fight. I've seen too many worlds fall because they never tried to listen first." The princess traced her finger along the water's surface, breaking the mirror image of twin suns. "Listening is rare among the powerful," she said. "Even I forget sometimes." Daniel saw a vulnerability in her eyes, fleeting but real. "You listened yesterday," he said gently. "That is why the water shone." She looked away, perhaps hiding a smile, perhaps hiding doubt. "Tell me about Earth," she said after a moment. "All I know are reports, oceans, storms, and a sky with only one sun." So Daniel spoke of Earth, of busy cities and quiet forests, of cultures woven together from 1,000 histories, of music carried across rooftops on summer nights. He spoke in simple English first, then shifted into Zalari when words fit better. The princess listened, sometimes asking, sometimes simply closing her eyes as if tasting each description. As the second sun climbed higher, a shadow moved at the far edge of the garden. Daniel saw a tall figure in dark robes slip behind a column, perhaps just a servant. Yet something felt off, too swift, too deliberate. He watched from the corner of his eye. "Your Highness," a voice called from the walkway. A young court scholar hurried toward them, holding a metal tablet. His face was pale, his hands trembling. "Urgent news! Defense beacons on the northern border report unknown signals." The princess stood, concern flashing across her face. Daniel rose with her. "Show me!" she commanded. The scholar tapped the tablet. Holographic symbols floated above it, rapid pulses, unrecognized ship signatures. "They appeared minutes ago," he said. "Our generals suggest a scouting fleet from the Raxan Collective." The name tightened Daniel's stomach. The Raxan were rumored rivals, jealous of Zalari influence. He glanced back to the column where the robed figure had hidden. Gone. The princess turned to Daniel. "Our council will meet at once. As envoy, you may attend. Your view might help." Daniel nodded, but his thoughts lingered on the hidden figure. "Your Highness, someone else was here, watching us." She followed his gaze. Guards nearby noticed as well, fanning out to search. Within moments, a cry rang out. A guard dragged a disgruntled servant toward them, a Zalari male in plain robes, but his hands bore faint ink marks of a rival noble house known to distrust humans. "I was only tending the vines," the servant protested. A guard inspected a small device found. On him, an eavesdropper capable of recording every word. The princess's jaw tightened. "Arrest him! Question him later!" As the servant was taken away, the princess faced Daniel. "Now you see palace games are not harmless jokes. Some would rather destroy trust than share it." Daniel bowed slightly. "Trust is still worth the risk." She studied him, that same searching look returning. Perhaps you are right. Then, more softly, come, envoy, the council awaits. They walked side by side through glowing halls, toward the war chamber. Courtiers parted before them, their whispers a river of speculation. Some spoke in fear of the Raxan fleet. Others hissed that a human now influenced royal decisions. Daniel kept his gaze forward, aware that every step beside the princess changed perceptions. Friends for some, threat for others. Inside the war chamber, a round table displayed star maps shimmering above its center. Generals in polished armor and ministers in ornate robes gathered. Conversation halted as the princess entered with Daniel at her side. Your Highness, an older general began, bowing, we have detected 6 ships at the border. Their course is slow, deliberate. They test our response. The princess glanced at Daniel. He spoke without waiting for permission. Silence might be taken as fear. On Earth, we call this saber rattling. They provoke to measure your caution, a minister scoffed. And what does the young human advise? That we sit and wait? Daniel shook his head calmly. Send a response fleet, but carry messages of willingness to speak. If they truly seek war, they will reveal themselves. If they seek leverage, they may choose words over lasers. Some ministers murmured agreement, others frowned. The princess lifted a hand. His suggestion matches our doctrine of river choice. Stand ready, but keep paths to peace open. She turned to a scribe. Prepare a diplomatic signal. Inform the Raxan they are welcome to speak at our border outpost. But our shield cruisers will escort them. The meeting continued with plans, troop movements, coded messages. Daniel remained at the princess's side, offering advice when asked, listening when not. He felt eyes on him, some curious, some hostile. Yet he stood firm, believing the bridge of understanding, once built, could hold beneath heavy steps. Hours. Later, the council adjourned with orders dispatched. The princess walked with Daniel back toward the crystal garden. Afternoon light slanted through high windows, dust motes turning in golden beams. You spoke well, she said. Some found your words strange, but they listened. Listening is the first part, Daniel replied. Believing comes next. She stopped beside a tapestry showing the river splitting into 2 paths, the same lesson he had named in the trial. You said a greater river carries both streams, she murmured. I wonder if my empire is ready to merge waters with earth. Daniel met her gaze. One step at a time, Your Highness. Today, we kept the river from flooding its banks. She allowed herself a quiet laugh, the sound like wind chimes. Perhaps tomorrow we will see if it can carry hope. Yet as they returned to their separate chambers, unseen eyes still watched from hidden corners, and somewhere deep in the palace, the arrested servant whispered secrets to his unseen master, secrets that could render even the strongest bridge. Fragile beneath a single well-placed crack, the bond between human and princess had begun to form, but shadows gathered, ready to test its strength. The suns had long slipped below the palace walls, leaving only blue lanterns to cast calm light across silent halls. But calm tonight was a mask. Whispers moved like cold wind through corridors. Even the crystal garden felt tense beneath the twin moons. Daniel walked with measured steps, his thoughts circling the day's warnings of a Raxan fleet and the captured spy from a rival noble house. Danger pressed closer with every hour. A soft chime sounded behind him. He turned to see Saren, the young court scholar who had first brought news of the border signals. His face was pale again, eyes wide. Envoy, he said in a hush. I found something in the archives, a message hidden inside old military logs. I think someone is planning to strike the palace tonight. Daniel's pulse quickened. Who sent it? Saren shook his head. The code is old, used only by House Varash, the same house of the arrested servant. He handed Daniel a thin data shard. The message says, Phase 2 begins at high moon, targets bridge makers. Daniel felt the words like ice. Bridge makers, surely a name for himself and perhaps the princess. You must tell the palace guard, he said. I tried, Saren whispered, glancing around. Their captain serves House Vorash. He dismissed my warning. Daniel nodded, once, making a quick choice. Then we go to the princess. He tucked the shard inside his jacket and hurried down the corridor with Saren at his side. They reached the princess's private study, doors of white stone carved with river symbols. 2 guards stood before them. Daniel spoke in the old tongue, urgent but respectful. The envoy must see Her Highness. It concerns her safety. The guards exchanged looks. One reached for the door handle when a sudden tremor shook the floor. Lanterns flickered. Distant shouts echoed through the hall. What was that? Saren gasped. Daniel's answer came as 4 armored figures burst from a side passage, weapons humming with blue energy. The guards barely raised their spears before. Bolts of light struck them down. The attackers turned toward Daniel, masks hiding their faces. Adrenaline roared through him. He had no weapon, only quick thoughts and borrowed courage. He grabbed Saren's arm and pulled him behind a marble pillar as another bolt scorched the wall. Shards of glowing stone sprayed across the floor. Split and flank, one attacker barked in Zalari war cant. Daniel understood. He whispered to Saren, Run to the council chamber! Find loyal guards! Saren hesitated, eyes wide, then darted away along a side corridor. Daniel stepped from cover, raising both hands. Stop! You attack an envoy under royal protection. This will bring ruin on your house. The lead attacker answered with a sneer. House Vorash already stands in ruin, but tonight we rise with racks and allies and without weak bridges. He leveled his weapon. Daniel sprang left as the bolt fired, rolling across the polished floor. Pain burned along his shoulder. A near miss. He scrambled behind another pillar, mind racing. He needed time. Time for Saren to bring help or for the princess to understand the threat. Voices sounded behind him. More footsteps. Then a door slammed open. The princess herself strode out of her study, golden eyes blazing. Behind her stood 2 personal guards in crimson armor. Traitors! She shouted. Lay down your weapons! The attackers hesitated, only a breath, but it was enough. The crimson guards lunged, spears crackling with electric charge. Chaos exploded in the corridor. Energy bolts, sparking metal, shouts of pain. Daniel rushed to the princess's side, shielding her as best he could. One attacker broke past the guards, charging straight at the princess with a dagger of blue light. Daniel stepped forward, hands raised. In the old tongue he called, Remember the oath of rivers, no blade raised against royal blood. The words struck the attacker like a sudden wall. Zalari history taught children that oath from birth. The shock slowed his strike. Before he could recover, a crimson guard swept his legs and drove a spear hilt into his chest, dropping him unconscious. The remaining attackers, seeing their rush fail, retreated down the corridor. Daniel started after them, but the princess touched his arm. Stay, she ordered softly. Her eyes searched his face, worry mixing with gratitude. You are hurt. Blood trickled from his grazed shoulder. I'll live, he said. We have to secure the palace. The princess nodded to a guard. Alert all loyal units. Seal the gates. House Vorash must answer for this. The guard sped off. Sirens began to wail, long rising notes that told everyone inside the palace a threat was underway. Doors slammed. Armor clanked. Orders echoed. Daniel and the princess moved quickly toward the central control hall, protected by crimson guards. As they passed balconies, he looked out over the city. Lights flickered in the distance, small bursts of energy, fire. The attack isn't only here, he warned. In the control hall, ministers gathered around glowing maps. General Alnar, the older warrior who had spoken at the council meeting, greeted the princess with a deep bow. "We have rebel movement in 3 districts, but no sign of the Raxan fleet yet. It seems this uprising wants to open gates before the fleet arrives." The princess's voice was cold steel. "We will not let them." She turned to Daniel. "Your people have fought urban rebels. What would you do?" Daniel studied the maps. Streets, power hubs, shield nodes. He pointed to 3 choke points. "Cut power to these streets, then flood them with stun drones. Rebels lose coordination in the dark. Deploy loudspeakers broadcasting surrender terms. In both common and old tongues, some will drop weapons if they hear the Oath of Rivers repeated." Ministers traded surprised looks. The princess gave a sharp nod. "Do it!" Within minutes, the city's lights dimmed block by block. From palace launch pads, swarms of stun drones buzzed outward, their engines humming like angry wasps. Loudspeakers boomed across plazas. "Remember your ancestors, lay down arms and choose the river of peace." Reports flashed across consoles, rebel cells surrendering, shield nodes secured. But one signal blinked red, an energy spike near the eastern gate. Daniel leaned over the console. "That's the gate control tower. If they seize it, they can drop the city shields for the Raxan ships." "I will go," the princess said. Daniel stepped in front of her. "With respect, Your Highness, your capture is their main goal." She met his gaze, unwavering. "And your death would collapse the bridge we built. We go together, or neither of us goes." General Alnar cleared his throat. "I will lead a squad. Your Highness, envoy, you may ride with us in the command skimmer. Speed and surprise are our best weapons." Moments later, they sped through palace avenues in a sleek hover skimmer, crimson guards flanking them on bikes. Smoke rose ahead where rebels had blown a supply truck. Debris littered the street, but the skimmer leapt over it with a surge of power. At the gate tower courtyard, rebels in stolen armor fired into the air, cheering as shield emitters flickered. Daniel felt the skimmer. Slow. General Alnar barked orders. Guards dismounted, forming a wedge. The princess stepped forward, voice ringing in the old tongue. "I am Selari, daughter of the River Throne. Drop your arms or face justice." Some rebels faltered, hearing their ancestral language from royal lips. Others raised weapons, shouting, "Defiance!" Blaster fire streaked toward the princess. Daniel tackled her sideways behind the skimmer door. Bolts hissed past, scorching metal. General Alnar's squad returned fire with stun rounds, bright rings that dropped rebels where they stood. Daniel rose, grabbed a fallen stun baton, and rushed with the squad. He ducked under a swing, jabbed the baton into a rebel's chest, blue arcs flashed, the rebel collapsed. Every movement was simple. Block, stun, advance. Human training in close defense blended with Zalari tactics he had studied. Within minutes, the courtyard was silent except for groans of stunned rebels. The tower's control panel flickered. Daniel and the princess climbed the stairs, breath ragged. In the control room, a single rebel tech frantically typed commands to disengage shields. He turned, eyes wild, leveling a pistol at the princess. Before Daniel could act, she spoke one single phrase, old, powerful. "By the Oath of Rivers, remember who you are." The rebel's hand shook. Memories of childhood lessons flashed in his eyes. Slowly, he lowered the pistol, tears forming. He collapsed to his knees. The princess reached out, deactivated the console, and the city shield lines brightened across the panoramic window. Sirens fell silent. Comm reports confirmed citywide cessation. Rebels surrendering in droves, Raxan fleet still beyond shield range, now hesitating without inside support. Victory, at least for tonight. On the tower balcony, twin moons cast silver light on the courtyard below. Daniel stood beside the princess, shoulder bandaged, breathing cool night air laced with smoke. "You saved me twice tonight," she said, softly. "We saved each other," Daniel replied. "And the bridge still stands." The princess looked down at the quiet city. "Bridge makers," she murmured. "Let our enemies learn that a bridge can also stand as a wall against those who bring war." Yet far beyond the shields, the Raxan fleet regrouped, their commanders angered by the failed uprising. Dawn would bring a new test, one that might demand more than words and stun batons. Daniel and Princess Solari knew the night's victory was only the beginning of a larger storm. But for now, beneath moonlight and wavering shield glow, they allowed themselves a single breath of hope. Hope that two voices, once divided by accent and pride, could still guide an empire and a world toward dawn without blood. Ask ChatGPT. The first light of dawn painted the palace towers in soft peach colors, but the mood inside the war chamber remained tense. Holograms of the Raxan fleet hovered above the round table. 12 heavy cruisers and a carrier, their engines glowing, like angry embers beyond the city shield. Each minute that passed felt like a stone on Daniel's chest. Princess Solari stood beside him, calm yet alert. Generals and ministers spoke in quick, low voices, debating strike plans. One advisor urged, launching the full orbital batteries. Another warned that a bloody victory would poison any hope of future peace. Daniel listened, choosing his moment. When the argument grew loud, he lifted his hand. "We have a chance to end this without fire," he said in clear Zalari. The room fell silent, surprised that a human dared interrupt. General Alnar frowned. "Their fleet is larger than we thought. Words may not break their shields." "Not just words," Daniel replied. He tapped the console, pulling up the broadcast channels. "Let me speak to them in Raxan. They value honor duels. If we challenge their commander by their own code, they must answer." Ministers murmured. Few Zalari knew Raxan culture deeply. Celery's eyes met Daniel's. A silent question. He nodded once, sure. "Very well," she said. "The envoy will address the fleet. But our batteries stay hot." Minutes later, Daniel stood before a tall, hollow display. A red icon flashed. Open channel. He inhaled slowly, remembering harsh consonants and guttural tones he had practiced in night hours on Earth. "To Commander Vazk of the Raxan Collective," he began in fluent Raxan. "This is Envoy Daniel of Earth, speaking with voice of Princess Solari. You sought a test of strength. We offer a test of honor. Choose single combat of words and wisdom. If you win, the shields will open. If you lose, you leave in peace. You have one cycle of our smaller moon to answer." The chamber waited. Seconds crawled. Then a snarling voice replied through speakers. "Human envoy, why should Raxan heed soft tongues?" Daniel kept steady. "Because the galaxy watches. Break your own honor code, and every ally will doubt your word." Silence followed, long enough that some ministers shifted uneasily. Finally, Vazk spoke. "We accept? Prepare your stage." The channel closed. Daniel exhaled a breath he did not know he had held. Solari touched his uninjured arm. "A dangerous gamble," she whispered. "Bridges are always dangerous," he answered. The stage became the palace's high council balcony, projecting holographic avatars for the galaxy net. Below, citizens gathered in plazas to watch sky screens. Above, the Raxan fleet halted. Weapon ports dimmed but not retracted. Daniel and Solari stood before a single crystal podium. Vazk's towering hologram materialized opposite them, scarred scales, eyes like molten bronze. He brandished a ritual staff tipped with metal claws. "We debate in 3 rounds, Solari announced in Old Zalari, her voice carrying. "History, purpose, and future. Each side speaks once per round. The council judges truth by the beacon of memory. An ancient beacon, same bowl that had glowed for Daniel, now rested between them. Its water shimmered, linked to sensors that detected emotional honesty by subtle biofield shifts. No trick could fake it. Round 1, History Vask struck his staff against virtual ground. Raxan history is conquest, he declared. We grow or die. Zalari once grew by blade. Now you hide behind words and humans. Murmurs rippled through the plazas. Daniel stepped forward, keeping voice calm. Zitari once wielded blade, yes, he conceded, using the older Zalari clan name to show respect. But they also healed lands after storms. My own earth once conquered and bled. Yet we learned that lasting strength is not how far a sword swings, but how many hands we join. History that ignores its lessons repeats its pain. The beacon brightened, truth recognized. Vask's eyes narrowed. Round 2, purpose, Vask's turn. Purpose of power is to protect one's own. You claim peace, yet your shield stands. Open it and prove trust. Daniel replied, a shield can be both wall and door. Purpose is to give time to talk before blades meet. We propose shared patrols at borders, human observers on Zalari ships, Zalari envoys on Raxan stations. Protection for all, not dominance for one. Water shimmered brighter. Crowds below began to cheer softly. Round 3, Future Vask hesitated, sensing momentum slip. Future belongs to those unafraid to seize it, he growled. Raxan refuses to kneel. Salari answered now, her voice steady as flowing rivers. Kneeling is not asked, only standing side by side. The river that splits can flood a valley or feed its fields. Choose. The beacon's water shone like a small sun. Sensors chirped. Unanimous resonance, spoken hope embraced by speaker's heart. A hush fell across every plaza, every palace hall. Vask looked from the glowing bowl to crowds on screen. Pride battled prudence in his gaze. Finally, he dipped, his staff tip in ritual salute. Raxan will test this path. We withdraw, for now. Hologram faded. In the sky, Raxan cruisers pivoted, engines firing as they broke orbit. Cheers erupted throughout the city. Fireworks of safe light, no explosives, blossomed above towers. Hours later, the palace Great Hall filled for a new treaty signing. Nobles of House Vorash, leaders of the failed uprising, stood under guard. Stripped of rank but spared harsh punishment at Salari's insistence. Punish deeds, not blood, she told her council. Daniel, freshly bandaged, watched as ministers wrote clauses in 3 languages. Zalari Common, Old Zalari, and Standard Trade Tongue. A final page held Human English, Daniel's subtle suggestion, symbol of new bridges. When time came to sign, Salari lifted the stylus, paused, and spoke before the gathered crowd. 1 cycle ago, I mocked a human's accent. Today, that human's voice helped guard our people. Let this treaty mark a lesson. Sometimes the smallest tongue unlocks the strongest gate. She signed with fluid grace, then handed stylus to Daniel. He wrote his name in neat lowercase letters. Applause echoed through crystal arches. After formalities, twilight draped the sky in purple and gold. Daniel found a quiet balcony overlooking the river city. Salari joined him, wearing a simpler cloak, her crown absent. You will leave soon, she said, hands resting on the stone rail. Earth will want full reports, he answered, but I suspect they will send many more envoys now. She looked up at the emerging stars. The river has widened, Daniel smiled, and its waters carry both our worlds. The moment was gentle, unhurried. Twin moons rose, reflecting on the river below. Palace lanterns flickered like fireflies. There is a tradition, Solari said softly, producing a thin silver chain with two small crystal pendants shaped like flowing water droplets. Stream brothers or stream sisters share these when paths unite. She offered one pendant to him. Daniel accepted, sliding the chain over his neck. "Thank you, stream sister," he said in Old Zalari. The words felt right. A breeze curled around them, carrying distant music and laughter from celebrating citizens. Yet Daniel also heard new sounds. Construction teams repairing damage, diplomats arranging future talks, children practicing phrases from three cultures in playful voices. Bridges already. "Safe travels, Daniel of Earth," Solari whispered. "Until our rivers meet again, Solari of the Twin Suns," he replied. They stood together a moment longer, watching starlight dance on river waves. Proof that even in a galaxy vast and fierce, a single shared language of respect could turn mockery into admiration, fear into accord, and strangers into guardians of each other's dawn. The story closed there, not with an ending, but with a beginning, one carved from simple words, steady patience, and the stubborn hope of a human envoy and an alien princess who chose to listen rather than conquer.